Awesome. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for waiting. And I know, because I've been told, that you guys have a whole bunch of questions about these animals. So what I want you to do is I'm going to show you some of our live anemones that are here in the wet lab that I take care of. And as we look at these anemones, I want you to start typing your questions into the chat because I want to spend my time here today answering as many questions as I can. So I'm just going to go ahead and share what's behind me, because behind me is a habitat with a whole bunch of sea anemones in it. And so sea anemones and jellyfish are actually closely related. What do you think sea anemones and jellyfish have in common? There's a lot. What could they have in common? Absolutely, Arun says they might have stingers in common. So they're in a family called cnidarians, and cnidarians all have stinging cells. Those stinging cells are called nematocytes, and that's what they use to catch their food. So we've got this camera set up behind me, just about showing us the close-up of the anemone I want. I'm going to go ahead and share that with you now. There you go. And I'm going to adjust this camera so we can look even closer at these anemones. Now, something that's pretty cool is these anemones, their favorite thing to eat. We're going to look really close at those tentacles here if we can. I'm going to go for one closer. Let's try this one. Ooh, too close. Not too close. There we go. So it looks a little bit upside down. It's just the way this camera works. So looking at these tentacles, what you're seeing is that's the part that will actually catch the food. Now, anemones and jellyfish have really similar bodies. How their bodies work are not only do they all have stinging cells, not only are they all cnidarians, but they also all have a soft body with radial symmetry. So radial symmetry means symmetry coming out in a circle. So if we were to look at the very top of the sea anemone, like this one here, I'm going to show you what I mean by that radial symmetry. We've got the big circle. I'm not very good at drawing a circle, sorry. We've got that big circle, and radial symmetry means we're looking at the radius. So if we take the middle and we draw a line out from the middle, we get symmetry. And symmetry is kind of like a mirror image, the same on either side. So all of our cnidarians, our jellyfish and our anemones, have that radial symmetry. So that's what you see drawn on this screen here. If I divide it this way, it would be symmetrical. If I divided it this way, it would still be symmetrical. If I divided it this way, it would still be symmetrical. So radial symmetry means symmetry coming from anywhere in the center out. And cnidarians all have that radial symmetry. Now, jellyfish, they also have that same radial symmetry, that symmetry that comes out from the center. Now here in the wet lab, we don't have any live jellyfish, so I'm not going to be able to show you a live jellyfish in the background here. But we can think about them a lot like our anemones, because anemones and jellyfish have a really similar but opposite lifespan. So jellyfish swim in the ocean as adults, as medusa. So medusa is the part where they're swimming in the ocean. But a lot of our jellyfish, they actually have a polyp form. And that polyp form is when they are attached to the ground. So when they're attached to the ground in their polyp form, they look a lot like an anemone. And scientists, as we were learning about some of these jellyfish species and how their life cycle works, a lot of times mistakes were made and people thought, oh, look at this cool new anemone I discovered, only to realize that it was actually the jellyfish's juvenile form before it left the ground to become a medusa, a jellyfish. So jellyfish and anemones have a lot in common. They're quite related to each other. And those nematocytes, those stinging cells, are one of the ways that they're related. So what do you want to know about our jellyfish? What are you curious about? What are you wondering? This one that we're looking at closely, this is called the painted sea anemone. And the painted sea anemone is called that because it is so pretty. It's one of my favorites. It almost looks like somebody painted on that top surface. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see those beautiful markings that we've got going on here. So that's where the painted anemone partly gets its name. It almost looks like somebody painted on top of it. And when we look at its stalk, I'm going to move to another sea anemone.
Oh, we can't see the document camera.
Okay, I'll turn off the DocuCam for now. So each of these different animals have quite different markings, and that is kind of what allows them to, that's what allows us as scientists to identify them, is those different markings. So all of these different anemones with their different markings are quite different. So I'm just looking in the chat to see what you guys want to know about our jellyfish. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up a video, one of my favorite videos that I have, of some of our smaller anemones feeding. So you can see how those nematocytes work. Now, the nematocytes are the stinging cells that these animals have. So if you, to picture how these work, what I'd like you to do is imagine your finger is a little hook like this. An anemone and a jellyfish don't really have a brain, so they don't think about, ooh, this fish is going to be delicious, I'm going to sting it. As soon as something made out of protein touches it, it stings, and it shoots that barb of venom into the animal. And when it shoots it into the animal, that will actually paralyze a fish. And then the fish can't move, and those hooks all over start to pull it into the anemone's mouth. So I've got a video here that I'm going to share with you of our strawberry anemones catching some Artemia. So I'm going to restart this video. These are the strawberry anemones. And if you look closely, you might see some little dots floating around. So that those bubbles that just happened was me adding some Artemia to this water. So as I added that Artemia to the water, you can see them start to swim around, and we'll look and see how they end up stuck on the ends of these tiny little strawberry anemones. You can see Artemia, they're one of the favorite foods of a lot of our jellies, a lot of our different anemones as well. So you can see it's caught a few of those Artemia on the end. And that hole in the center there, that's this animal's mouth. So they're starting to pull those Artemia into the mouth. So it doesn't paralyze them right away. What it does is it kind of slows them down, makes it hard for them to escape. So as they get stuck onto those tentacles, it gets harder and harder for them to escape. Now, anemones aren't particularly fast moving, and that's why stinging their prey is important. They sting their prey so their prey isn't strong enough to swim away anymore. And then they can kind of deflate, they push water out of their body to pull their arms into their mouth. So if we all want to, together for a minute, imagine we're a sea anemone. Anemones, they glue themselves to a rock. So you can see the rock that this anemone is glued to. Imagine you've got tentacles coming out all around your mouth. The tentacles come out, and as soon as protein touches them, boom, the nematocytes fire. They pull the food into the mouth, down into the stomach, where the anemone starts to digest. And once it's finished digesting, that's when it gets a little strange, because sea anemones, their food comes right back out the same way. Blech. So sea anemones, Amy just said they're so cute, but they also poop out of their mouths. How's that for cute? So sea anemones are some of the oldest animals on our planet. They've been around since before even dinosaurs. It means that their body plan is really, really simple, but works really well. For us, we've got taste buds and a tongue to help us identify our food, to help us know if our food is good for us or bad for us. A sea anemone, it just senses the protein right on its tentacle tips and pulls it into its mouth. So it never tastes the food. It just goes straight in, straight back out. And that's good news, because when this animal poops back out its mouth, it doesn't have to taste that either. So the camera's having a little bit of trouble focusing this closely. We'll see as we zoom out a little bit farther, see if we can get a better look at that sting that's happening right there. This camera is so precise. Any wiggle makes it hard to see. I bumped the water tray a little bit, so it's the water's moving and making it hard to focus.
So Ethan asked if they are they able to move? Maybe I think Ethan, are you asking if it can move off the rock or if it just stays there?
Off the rock. So sea anemones, they can move, but they don't move like you and I. They only have 1 foot. And that foot is attached to the rock. So normally when they move, what you can think of is if this is my foot, this is my foot, they stretch their foot wider and kind of inch along like this. So by stretching out their foot wide and then pulling it back to small is the main way that these animals move. Now, if a predator comes close to them, there is their kind of panic, oh no, I need to get away. Last case scenario, there's no other way I can escape this. My stings aren't working. What they'll do is they can actually let go with their foot all at once. And then they act like a wacky, wavy, inflatable tube man. They move their whole body just like this. And they flop through the water. This isn't very good for a sea anemone because they don't know where they're going to land. They could land anywhere, and they don't have a lot of control over that. I see Kian's wondering if they can sting us. These animals absolutely can sting us. So their sting, is it designed to eat people? What do you think? A Y or an N in the chat? It's not designed to eat people. So their sting isn't that strong for us. It doesn't really hurt me if I touch the sea anemones that we have here in British Columbia. But the magnificent anemone, the type of sea anemone that clownfish live in, their sting is actually much stronger because animals like turtles will sometimes take a bite of them. And a turtle is a much bigger animal than that Artemia that we were looking at our little cup corals eating. So that one, I was once teaching someone to dive and they swam too close to it and the tentacles touched their leg from their knee all the way to their ankle. And I ended up having to take that person to the hospital because the sting hurt a lot and it made their leg all swollen. So at the hospital, they just gave them some Benadryl, some allergy medication, and they were fine the next day. But on the day that it happened, it was really, really painful. So there are anemones with that much stronger sting. But in the ocean, one of the strongest stings is the box jellyfish. The box jellyfish, its venom is so strong that it could actually kill a person in less than 20 minutes. So that sting is really intense. And one of the reasons the box jellyfish sting is so intense is because turtles and box jellyfish have been evolving alongside each other. Turtles continue to eat the box jellyfish. We don't know exactly what makes them immune to the sting, but some people research that, hoping to find a cure for us to have a cure from that box jellyfish sting. Right now, what we know about a box jellyfish sting is that what its sting does is it actually causes our cells to expand in a way that the potassium, the salt in our body, starts to leave the cells. So that's really bad for us. Our cells don't function without that salt, and that's how the box jellyfish can kill a person in such a short amount of time. Now, the way that we get around that, the way that we deal with stings from our box jellyfish and other jellyfish is that we actually, one of the antidotes that they're coming up with is a zinc. But the first thing that we do is we need to stop those cells from stinging. So I'm going to share with you a little image of the box jellyfish so you can get an idea of what it looks like. So this is our box jelly right here. And they're called a box jelly because they've got that kind of folded over edge at the bottom. This folded under edge, I'm going to draw a circle around it. Maybe a square, because it's called a box jelly, because this folded edge is kind of squared. And then their digestive system is up here at the top. So this is the part of the jelly. They've kind of got 4 lobes, 4 chunks of their stomach to digest their food. Now, what's special about a box jelly over our other jellyfish is that they're much better swimmers. Some research is being done right now that I think is really interesting because jellyfish, do they have eyes? A Y in the chat for yes, an N in the chat for no. Do they have eyes? A Y or an N? I'm looking out here. I'm seeing a lot. Looks more like a bag than a box, absolutely. A lot of nose. Interesting. So box jellyfish don't have eyeballs, and we don't know exactly where their light sensors are. But we think, scientists think, that box jellyfish can sense light. And the reason we think that they can sense light is because box jellyfish spend part of their lives in the mangroves. Mangroves are big roots under the water. And when they do experiments, the jellyfish, even with their long tentacles, they don't get tangled up. So they can swim in between those roots. And they swim by squeezing right around here. So around here, they pulse, they squeeze right there, and that controls their swimming. Most jellyfish just drift in the water, hoping to end up somewhere nice. Whereas these jellyfish, they'll actually swim after their food. And so that tells us that they need to have some form of light sensor, but we don't know exactly where it is. My favorite part about jellyfish is how much we have to learn about them still. So here, we actually have a person whose job is researching jellyfish, and their goal is to see what the life cycle is of the jellyfish. So here at the Vancouver Aquarium is one of the first places in the world to be successful at breeding sea nettles. So they're a species of jellyfish. So it's actually really cool. The amount of research that's going on here behind the scenes just is stunning. We've learned a lot about these different animals. Now, I want us to get a chance to look over here again at this anemone, because I've got to be nice and close here. How many people want to see me get stung by a sea anemone? You can put a Y in the chat if you want me to be stung by a sea anemone, an N in the chat if you don't want me to be stung. We can see this sea anemone right here that I'm quite close to. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my pinky finger and I'm gonna slowly put my pinky finger next to those tentacles, and we're gonna see what this jellyfish does. Does anybody have a prediction? What might this jellyfish do? What do you think it'll look like when I get stung? Now, don't worry. I've been stung by this individual jellyfish many times. I'm going to say to you, though, when you're out exploring the oceans, please do not touch any of our anemones because different people have different reactions. So I know that I'm not allergic to these sea anemones and to their sting, so I'll be safe. But when I'm cleaning their habitat, sometimes they'll brush against this part of my arm, and it gets really itchy if that happens. If I touch them with my fingers, I'm pretty safe. So the more sensitive our skin is, the more it can hurt us, which is why it's very important for us not to touch animals out in the ocean. So let's see. I'm gonna flip this down So you can see the anemone that I am about to touch. Are you all ready? So my finger is getting very close to it. And you can see it moving to wrap more tentacles around me. I'm gonna very slowly move my finger away.
Is that because it senses your finger as protein?
So our skin absolutely is made up of protein. This animal does not have a brain. So as soon as the protein touches inside, so this each nematocyte, it's kind of shaped like this. Here's a trigger, and here's the barb. And the barb is what I feel when it stings me. The barb is what has the venom. So when a protein touches the trigger opens and it releases the barb with the venom. So that venom then goes into me with hooks. These are so small, they're microscopic. So I can't see each individual hook going into me without a microscope. But that's what's happening. As soon as the protein touches, bang, it stings. So it's a chemical reaction, not a, ooh, look at that, it's probably delicious. So it's really important for us when we're out exploring that we don't touch these animals, because it's not thinking, ooh, I'm gonna try to eat her. But it is shooting that venom regardless. And you know what's kind of really interesting I find is that maybe type a Y in the chat if you've ever seen a jellyfish on the beach. I've absolutely come across jellyfish on the beach. And when they're on the beach, even if they're not alive anymore, their stings can still work. So what's important for us to know is how we can stay safe from those stings. What you can do, there's a lot of different things, but the number one thing that we want to do to treat a sting from an animal like a jellyfish or a anemone is that we use vinegar. And that vinegar breaks down the protein in the sting. The protein is what carries the venom in the sting. So the best way to treat them is by pouring as much vinegar as you can. It's important that we don't rub it, because if you rub that sting, then it's going to sting you in other places. So that's our best way, our best treatment for these jellyfish stings. Now, we're starting to run low on time, and I know you have a bunch of really great questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up for maybe Mally to share some of your questions with me. What are you wondering still about our sea anemones and our jellyfish? What would you like to know?
So just to clarify to the students who are new to Connected North at Home, we do put our questions in the chat, and because there's so many kids, we can't unmute the mic. It just gets really complicated, so you won't be able to talk. Erin wants to know, how long do jellyfish live?
That's a super cool question, because there's a range of answers. The best answer is probably until they get eaten, but there's some species of jellyfish that we call the immortal jellyfish, because how it reproduces is it actually clones itself. It makes an exact copy and breaks off. So it kind of depends on what we think. So box jellyfish, as they continue through their life, or jellyfish, as they continue through their life, some of them clone themselves, and that means that their DNA stays the same forever. But maybe as an individual, parts of them die, but cells on our body die. So it kind of depends on what we think the end is, or how long they live.
Wow, that's a brand new fact for me. I learned so much. Holy cow. I guess the students want to know, do box jellyfish sting people? And maybe you can let us know where they live so we know where to stay away from them.
So box jellyfish live in a lot of different places, but the deadly box jellyfish, the one that people worry about, there's actually over 13 different types of box jellyfish. So box jellyfish is a group of jellyfish that swim and have a very strong sting because they sting fish. Fish are their primary food instead of artemia and little bits of plankton. But the dangerous species of box jellyfish live in our tropics. So they live in the ocean in regions they come as far north as Southern California. Every once in a while, you'll get some box jellyfish that come up all the way to Hawaii. But most of the stings that people have had that have been deadly by box jellyfish have been in either Australia, the Philippines, Indonesia, or Malaysia. So that's the area that has the most of the two species that are deadly to humans and dangerous, that we consider dangerous to humans. But there's lots of things we can do to protect ourselves from those stings. In Australia, anytime you go to a beach that isn't protected by a net, they recommend that you wear what's called a stinger suit. And that's just kind of like a really thin wetsuit. You could also just wear a pair of tights and a long sleeve shirt like this, because that jellyfish, the only reason it's stinging is because it feels the protein of your skin. So as long as you cover up your skin, you're safe from these animals.
Oh, that's a cool fact. Um, but the students want to know the predators for both the sea anemones and the jellyfish. What kinds of predators are there?
So cnidarians, that group, their biggest predator is definitely sea turtles. But there are like butterfly fish and some other fish that will go ahead and eat them too. Here in BC, there's not a ton of predators for our anemones, but the painted anemone that we were looking at closely for a while, those ones sometimes get eaten by our leather star, a type of sea star.
Cool. Okay. Are there any other questions about jellyfish? Do you have any video of jellyfish? I know Danica said you might have some video of jellyfish that the students might be able to see.
You give me just a moment. I didn't quite have time to open the things I had hoped to because I was chatting right up to with Connected North en français, right up to before this. Let me see what I can find. Maybe I can answer another question while I look for
The biggest type of jellyfish.
the biggest species of jellyfish. So lion's mane jellyfish can get to be a meter across. So if you think about the length of your arm, that is the length of a jelly, like that there, the bell, and that's the top part. The bell can get to be a meter across.
And do some of them glow in the dark?
Yeah, you know what? One of my favorite science videos in the world is taking a look at Dr. Edith Weber's work. And what she was doing was she was studying bioluminescence in jellyfish. So why do these jellyfish glow? And so what they saw was essentially that she thought like, oh, maybe they glow to warn their prey, but then that means the bigger animals that might eat them will be easy to see. So they didn't want, so she thought that couldn't be why. And so what she thought was, what if glowing is their way of defending themselves, their last chance at defending themselves? So some of these jellyfish, they'll light up in a specific pattern And that pattern tells big predators, come eat this little predator that's eating me. And that's actually the first way we ever saw the giant squid. I'm going to share with you our jelly cam. So these are the jellies here at the Vancouver Aquarium that are floating around in their habitat. And you can watch these jellyfish from your own homes whenever you want at vanaqua.org/visit/live-cams-jellycam. So we've got a few different live cams that we can watch of these animals moving around. And you've got that site on your resource page. So these are the jellyfish just chilling about, living their lives. And you can see those long tentacles that they're using to sting their food.
Well, that's so cool. Thank you so much, Tamara, for, I'm sorry for the mix-up, and thanks for stepping in so quickly to connect with the students. We have a really big group here today, so I know that they showed up to learn about jellyfish and anemones. So we are looking forward to connecting with you again when we, oh, look at them coming. That is awesome.
So a lot of times we just see a bunch of blue because the jelly cam doesn't cover all of the space that the jellyfish can cover. They move in and out of the image. They'll be coming there and back, but you will be able to see some of the jellyfish some of the time.
That's awesome. So boys and girls, thank you so much for coming, and great to meet the new friends that came today. And we will hopefully see Tamara in the summer when we do our camp. We're hoping to do something about plastics and jellyfish, and maybe another surprise. So, oh, look at that one. That's absolutely gorgeous. So hopefully we'll see you. Thanks, Ray. And Rael, you are amazing. The last 2 days you've been sharing resources. Do you see that, Katie?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rael.
Thank you. And maybe we'll see you guys later for Josh's session when we're drawing a beaver, and tomorrow when we connect, I even forget who we're connecting to. It just, the days go by so fast. So thanks. We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you so much for having us, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, take care.
You too.